Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of POV with Dom. I'm your host, Dom. Welcome. So we haven't done just a me and you episode for a while, have we? I can only apologise for that. Life has been very hectic recently. This episode format is going to be a little bit about me, and then we're going to go into some agony aunts. Oh my God. Pardon me, that crept up on me. Do you want to know what? I'm going to keep that in because we're raw and we're unfiltered here, all right? And then we're going to just talk about life and things that I've learnt recently. I think this is going to be an episode of sort of lessons that I've learnt in my 20s, that sort of vibe. I did have an episode planned for tomorrow, which was just me, but it was me in a face mask, and it was the day after I received some pretty bad news, and I was rude about someone, and I don't really want to put that out on the internet. But essentially, as I've mentioned, life recently has been hellish. Now, I know a lot of us have shit periods in our lives, or in Taylor Swift terms, our era. I'm going through a hell era right now, and I think I'm coming at the other end of it. But the beginning of this year, I mean, I think we all knew, if you watch my videos, you know that my UGG broke on New Year's Eve. And then I think that was just the catalyst and the sort of prologue before the chapter of 2024 began. And TBH, it has been a very good year in the sense that I've gone to LA, which was really fun. I've also gone to Iceland with my mum. It was such a beautiful trip. And I've made loads of memories, new friends, new experiences, new songs. That's the positives. But sometimes it's good to reflect on the negatives. Now, hear me out here. Walk with me, because I know a lot of you are like, I just watched on your YouTube video and you were saying how you shouldn't focus on the negatives, whatever. Hear me out. The negatives this year are purely shaping me into who I am and who I'm meant to be and growing into myself, all this jazz. I have had quite possibly such a stressful start to the year because my living situation has changed, because someone has dealt with some things. The less the better, but my living situation has drastically changed, which I'm someone that hates change, drastic change of plans. I hate it. I really, really like to know what I'm doing, and I like to be informed. I'm a big believer in communication is key, and sometimes people don't communicate, and I find that the most irritating thing in the world. So essentially, living situation up in the air, thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have to move back home. Oh my God, I'm going to have to move. Hopefully things are working out, and I think they are. So I'm keeping positive about that, but that's been a main issue, hence why I've not really had the time to sit down and do a podcast episode, because most of my time now is trying to find people to live with me. I am also going through a lot of personal change. My personal relationships, I've suffered quite a lot of loss this year. Now, I'm not saying that to get you on my side and be like, Dom, are you okay? I hope so. I truly am all right. It is just life. I think it's kind of a touch wood moment, because the past year, I remember sort of in my gratitude journal saying, I'm so grateful for all my best friends. We never argue. We never fall out. Over the past 6 months, me and all my closest friends have had our first argument, our first fallout. Crazy. And I think that comes down to the fact that nothing stays the same forever, ever. People change. I change, they change, we change opinions, we change characteristics, our personalities develop, and that's natural. And sometimes you drift from people that you thought you were going to be friends with forever, and that is one thing that I'm kind of coming to terms with. Yes, sometimes I sit and cry about it, but then other times I'm like, okay, this is what has to happen. I'm not going to try and force a friendship that's dying. I'm not going to try and hope that a phoenix rises out of the ashes. It could do, but I'm not going to be an optimist on this, because sometimes toxic optimism can be a killer, and I don't want to put myself through that, I hope I'm making sense. So basically, you guys can understand that this year's been pretty turbulent, but I've also had a lot of good stuff, as I've mentioned at the start. So I suppose it all comes down to balance. I'm trying to say, if you, listener, are struggling, then it's okay, because so am I. And we can struggle together. But listen, I know the best thing that I've learned recently is I saw a quote online, and it was hard times prepare you for the good times, or something like that. I know it's such a sort of Facebook mom, driftwood affirmation in the kitchen type vibe, live, laugh, love. It's very true. I think the hard times prepare us and make us more resilient and thick-skinned, and then we sort of level up. Link in The Legend of Zelda, when he upgrades his Master Sword, he's like, okay, cool, it's more powerful now. That was a horrible, horrible dungeon that I just went through to try and save my girlfriend, but she's not here. but I've got a sword now to get closer to her. You know what I mean? Anyways, I'm waffling. But essentially, growth takes place when you're challenged, not when you're comfortable. Have I been challenged this year? Absolutely. Have I wanted to cry every day? Yes. Weirdly, I haven't been able to, actually. I often say to my friends and stuff, I'm going to go and cry tonight. I haven't been able to. Last year, I think we all saw the video of me going through heartbreak. I was a mess. I was crying all the time. And now I feel like I'm a bit numb to it. I feel like I'm just like I'll just sit there with like, you know, colon left bracket. You know what I mean? Anyways, today I want to just kind of have a chilled chat with you all. I feel like it's overdue. I've had a few guests on who I've absolutely loved talking to, but those episodes were filmed way back in January. It's now March. And as we step into the spring season, one thing that I'm challenging myself to do is to sort of blossom with the trees. I'm joking. But also like sort of, I love how spring is often a time to remind us to clean our stuff up and also to grow into something new and almost just like evolve. And it's almost like rebirth as well. I feel like it's the perfect era to sort of get my shit together, which I've been doing over the past few months. I've been keeping this podcast going. I'm back on YouTube posting every week. I'm getting my content done on socials. I'm doing so well on Instagram. Like, it is just working out, and I'm so proud of the work that I'm putting in. It's paying off. However, personality wise, there's things that I'd like to change. I want to start reading more. I want to go to the gym more. I want to go on runs more. And I have been doing that, but very, very densely. I think it's densely or sparsely. I can't think. What's the word? I learned it in geography. Dense. I think it's dense when you do it. No. Or is it sparse? Whatever. I've not been doing it as much as I'd like to. And I want to get into doing it more. But as I said, to kind of tie in with the beginning, it is very hard to get on with doing your life when you have interruptions, such as you need to sort your living situation out, which is a serious subject. Spring is my mother's favourite season, and she often always tells me whenever we go on walks, when the cherry blossoms are blossoming and the trees start to go green, she just goes, I love this. It often reminds me that even after death has taken part, life comes again, and regrowth and rebirth, and it's always a time for her to sort of like look on her characteristics and her attitude and stuff. My mum is very spiritual, and I love that woman, and it rubs off on me, and I'm so grateful it does, because I look out my window and I can see the park from my house, and all the trees are barren. They're just twigs. However, on my walk today, I went for a walk this morning. Yes, that's right, I exercise. And on the trees, you can see the saps of leaves starting to appear. So it just goes to show that like they're not dead. They're regrowing, they're rebirthing themselves. They're in their sort of like cocoon era, and then they're going to burst out like a butterfly in a few months' time. And I, for one, can't wait for it. One thing about me, I love green trees. I love looking in the background of a photo and seeing the countryside. Like those TikToks where it's like, this will be the UK in 5 months' time. And it's got like birdsong playing, and it's just countryside and fields with pink skies and green trees. Oh my God, that is the best content ever to consume. I'm sat there like, chef's kiss. I want to eat it up. I want to eat the image. It's that delicious. And I can't wait to go home, because I'm so blessed that I live in the countryside. And I'm only like 3 hours away from London, so I can just hop on the train and go home whenever I want. And I just have that on my doorstep. It's beautiful. And in London, it is cute, but there's a lot of houses here. There's a lot of buildings, a lot of places to go, and not many parks. Although Clapham Common exists, and I can just Uber there, to be fair. Speaking of Ubering, actually, my chest of drawers broke recently. Cue gasp. I felt very sad messaging my landlord, and they came back with the most attitude, adding on to the problems I've already got this year. They were like, we can't tell if you've actually done this yourself, so we're not going to give you any money to get new ones. You have to get them yourself. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's really rude of you, considering you're the one who gave it to me and it's an absolute piece of shit. The chest of drawers that I've been given, oh my God, if you blew on it, it would just dismantle like dry bones when you jump on him in Mario. It's awful. They've given me like this 5p thickness of wood to hold my clothes, and it always just snaps and falls through the socket that it's meant to be in. It's awful. It does not work. I've spoken to my landlord about it a few times, and I had an inspection in December, and I was like, listen, this isn't working. He goes, oh, let me take it back to the office for you, Dan. Let me take it back to the office for you. And I was like, great, I'm going to get new drawers. Nothing was followed up until, of course, last week it was stuck. I was sorting out my clothes, and it was just stuck. It wouldn't move. So I pulled it with some force, and it literally ripped in, like the front face of the drawer ripped in half. And I was just like, this is just typical. You know, when everything in life just adds up and up and up, and the cherry on top is just one minuscule thing, and it just causes you to have an absolute breakdown. I had to take a time out. I had to lie on my bed, curl up in a ball, hugging a pillow, and call my mum and be like, Mum, I'm about to have a breakdown. Like, I was literally, it's just, this year has absolutely kicked my ass, but do you want to know what? I'm still standing. I'm still here. I'm still slaying. I don't want that to come back to bite me in the bum. But to be fair, I think the worst of it is over now. Is it over? I think it is over. I do, because there's only so much shit that can be thrown at someone, you know? And I feel like the more you focus on a negative, as I mentioned at the beginning, the more you focus on a negative, the more it becomes like where your energy goes, where your attention goes, energy flows, is the correct quote. And I've noticed that this year, because of all the negative things that are happening to me, unbeknownst and unwarranted and unprovoked rather, I've not been thinking about negative stuff. It just came about because life lessons are difficult. They come about as and when. You can't control them. You can either sit with it and process it, or you can let it consume you and think of all the negatives, which I have done for a while. So one thing that I want to teach you guys, if you're listening to this, is if you have negative stuff happening to you, if you let it consume you and be like, oh, woe is me, my life is awful, everything's going wrong, instead, shape it into being like, this is making me a better person, this is making me more resilient. You are on your way to slaying.com, because let me tell you this, there is such a stigma against sort of looking at negativity with positivity, and it again falls on the fine line between toxic positivity, which we shouldn't do, but I think it's called stoicism. And I think it's like sort of realizing, hey, I am not going to be beaten by this. You're there, I see you, okay, I'm feeling negative for a day or two, and I'm going to get up and process and move on. Granted, I have let this consume me for far too long, but it's March now. As I've said, it's spring. I'm ready to grow and evolve and move on and forget the past and forget the people that have hurt me this year, because I did not expect that in my ripe old age of 21 that people could be so horrible, and they are. And I was like, oh my God, like, you're my best friend. Why are you being so mean? Like, what the hell? What's happening? I know there's always two sides to every story. Actually, let's get on to that. I think with people telling you their side of the story, there's always two sides, right? There's always two sides to every story. And sometimes you might be given the dramatized version or the hyperbolized version or the version that's not accurate. But I can safely sit here and say, I'm in the right. God, I sound like an absolute freak. But genuinely, I am in the right in all of these situations. And people are being bone thick dumb in my immediate circle. And that's why they're no longer in the circle. They're in the outer realm of my life. They're gone. Bye. You know? And it is shit, actually. Friendship fallouts are awful. It sucks. It really does. Like, I've grieved it all. I've moved on. It is what it is. Like, you've made your bed. You've burnt the bridge. Now stay on your side. You know what I mean? The next thing I want to talk about is friendship fallouts. I feel like for me, this year, as I mentioned, hellish year thus far, I've suffered a few. I've lost a few friends that I thought would be in my life forever, and it really just goes to show how vicious your adolescence and 20s can be. I mean, people can fall out with anyone at any age, but I think this is directed more toward the people who are, I'd say, about 18 to 25. Your closest friends that you think you're going to be friends with forever may not be. And it's a difficult lesson to learn. And I think for me, I had about 3 in a week that just up and left because we had disagreements or we just weren't talking, and I had underlying anger toward them because they were doing X, Y, Z, whatever. And sometimes they just self-warranted. They just burnt the bridge themselves. They poured the gasoline all over that rickety bridge and just burnt it. And I feel like, you know, in life, the connections that you have with people, I'll always celebrate that. I will always celebrate the connections that I have with people, or have had, sorry. But once you disrespect me, I think that you cross a line, and then it's just really hard to come back from. I am quite a forgiving person, actually, I am. But the stuff that I've dealt with this year with people is crazy. And I'm sure you guys can agree. Like, you have definitely dealt with people in your life who have been an absolute headfuck. And I can only apologize for that. But one thing I will recommend that you do is not look back with anger or hatred or toxicity. I'm calling myself out here because I do that all the time. And one thing I'm trying to learn, because #spring, new person, new me, is look back with love and gratitude at the connection that you did have and the good moments. And obviously the bad times were real and you won't forget them, but just don't focus on them. because then you're only going to attract more negativity. Do you know what I mean? It seems like an endless vicious circle. Like, I'm not trying to say like never thinking negative again, but also try not to, because as for someone who's been doing that most of this year and being consumed by all the negativity, it's very, let's say, overwhelming at parts, because all I'm thinking of is the negative and thinking of is just like, why would they do this to me? And then I'm just like, okay, get over it. You know what I mean? But yeah, life has certainly given me a backhand this year, a slap, if you will. But with resilience and with time, I have grown and I've carried on. And I was so close to stopping the podcast and stopping YouTube to focus on literally sorting out my living situation, sorting out the people that I've fallen out with, sorting out other variants and deals and business stuff that I can't talk about publicly. There's been a lot. Okay, there's been a lot. I'm so sorry. This sounds like a whole woe is me episode, but if it's just you and me, we're having a chat, okay? So just bear with me. Let me vent. But yeah, I want everyone to know that it's okay to feel like shit, but it's also okay to know that you are going to be better. Like, good days are coming. They are inevitably coming. As are bad days, sure, but the good days, they're more powerful, they're more beautiful, they're more tasty than those sad days. And I notice that there's a lot more good days than sad days. Like for me, I think, once a month, there's like 3 or 4 sad days and about, 26 to 28 good days. And I'm like, great. That's a ratio I would love to have. And I do have, But yeah, I'm going to stop waffling about my life. That's my recent update on life. Spring is coming. Looking forward to evolving as a person, dealing with stuff in my personal life, which has been very consuming. So hence why I've not put much effort into the podcast. Hence why there's been so many guest episodes that I pre-filmed. The original plan for this podcast between you and me was to do me, then a guest, me, then a guest, me, then a guest. And then obviously things happened. And also I filmed a whole episode out in LA and I'm so mad. My microphone wasn't filming. So, oh no, it was, sorry, but I pressed don't save in a quick flash of turning off my computer, and then I was like, yeah, it was one of those moments. But anyways, we're going to hop over to the agony aunt section, which you guys can submit to if you'd like on the Google form, which is the link in my bio. So let's go and check out the agony aunt. Hi Dom, I find myself in a bit of a pickle. I've been in love with my best friend for years, but I've never had the courage to confess my feelings. Recently, they've been dropping hints that they might feel the same way about me. However, there's a catch. They're currently in a long-term relationship. I'm torn between revealing my true feelings and potentially ruining our friendship, or keeping quiet and wondering what if for the rest of my life. What should I do? Okay, well, there's this delicate situation, but it's not uncommon to develop feelings for a close friend. However, I would suggest, before taking any sort of action, assess your friend's current relationship. Is it one of strength, or is it one that's lacking? If your friend is giving you hints as well, maybe this is a conversation that you need to have privately. You don't need to act upon anything. And I'd really strongly recommend that you don't be a homewrecker. Although Marina and the Diamonds did release a very good song, don't do that. Communication is key. I think the theme of this episode is communication. Like, if people can communicate with me more, then my life will be a lot easier. Similarly though, be prepared for any outcome. They could be just a very flirtatious person and you might not get the answer that you want. And one thing I would strongly recommend is expectations can be an absolute killer. So please know that you are possibly going to get an answer that you're not happy with. So don't ride high and think it's all going to work out. If it doesn't, it's meant to be. Rejection is protection and redirection. Remember that. Okay, we've got another story here. Let's go. Hi Dom, I hope you're doing well. Love your content. Thank you. I'm writing to you because I'm at a loss. My best friend and I have been inseparable for as long as I can remember. We've shared everything: laughter, tears, secrets, and dreams. However, over the past few months, things have taken a turn for the worse. We've been arguing more frequently and our conversations feel strained. She rarely answers my calls too, and it makes me feel less than. I don't know what went wrong or how to fix it. I miss my friend terribly, but I'm afraid we've drifted too far apart. What should I do? Okay, let's get into this then. Friendship fallouts, they happen, hey. I think to start, reflect on the conversations that you've had with your friend recently and assess and think, is this the treatment that I should be getting? I think you should know deep down if this is the treatment that you should get. Are you wanting more of the fun times that you've had with this person in the past when potentially they were a different person? Because if this is the attitude that they have now and have done for months, then potentially there's some personal growth that you or them need to do. I'd also strongly recommend communicating again. Reach out with an open heart, honesty, and care, and gentleness, be gentle, because they could be going through something and reflecting on you. One thing that I've noticed with the people that have hurt me recently is they're going through something, so they project. A lot of the times people in our lives who hurt us are hurt themselves. The saying hurt people is so true. So maybe they're going through something and taking it out on you unfairly, and even though they know that, but they're just too proud to admit it. Getting into a deep conversation could be very easy and sort of iron out any kinks and resume the relationship to what it once was. But also remember, it takes time and effort from both parties as well. You can't force yourself to be the giver in this relationship. It's a two-way street. It comes to relationships as well, any sort of connection, apart from dogs and cats because they can't talk. As long as they sit there looking cute, that's fine. But seriously though, make sure it's a give and take, not a give and they just receive. That sounds wrong. Anyways, every relationship that we have, whether it flourishes or falters, shapes us into who we are and the connections that we have in the future. They're all important. Sometimes they end brutally and it might be really, really heartbreaking. Sometimes they have a slow death. Sometimes they get reborn. But that's the thing about communication and relationships. If we communicate to one another, we can fix, make, or break a connection. So be very careful with how you communicate with people. That is a perfect way to end this podcast episode. Thank you so much for listening. I've been Dom, your podcast host, and I apologize sincerely for ranting for too long about my problems at the beginning of this episode. But hey, this is like our little FaceTime call, our weekly call catch up. I've got to fill you in what's going on in my life. And please feel free to submit your agony aunts. They're really, really good. I love reading them. We are officially halfway through series 1. So there's only so many episodes left. So make sure that you are there and ready and waiting for the next episode. But thank you for all the support. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I really, really do love you all. I hope you have a beautiful week, and I'll see you next week for our amazing catch up, or catch the YouTube video on Sunday. Bye, everyone.